Welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Liz Skilton. I'm an Associate Director of Research at the Kathleen Babineau Blanco Public Policy Center and head of the implementation team for Whole Health Louisiana. We're excited to welcome you to our Lunch and Learn for Whole Health Louisiana today. WHL is a collaborative effort led by the Louisiana Department of Health as the public sector anchor and funder for the Whole Health Louisiana initiative. The Blanco Center leads the plan's implementation and evaluation. If you're unfamiliar with what Whole Health Louisiana is, WHL is the state's cross-sector initiative intended to systematically address, mitigate, and prevent childhood adversity within our systems of care and support. WHL has 4 priority areas and goals: collaboration, awareness, workforce, and prevention and healing. With these priorities in mind, WHL's vision is to build a state where children, families, and community members across Louisiana are healthy and thriving, regardless of who they are and where they live. I'm going to turn things over to Quinn, who will be our moderator for today's session, to introduce our speakers. I see a hand is raised in the side margin here, and hopefully I will try to open up the chat so that you can put a question in there. But I'll turn things over to Quinn to get started introducing our speaker and move forward with the webinar in the interim. So Quinn, please go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Liz. Hi, everyone. Let's get started. I'm Quinn Nguyen, a research associate at the Blanco Center and coordinator for the Whole Health Louisiana project. I will be moderating this webinar and all of our future Lunch and Learn webinars, along with my colleagues here at the Blanco Center. As part of this initiative, we are holding a variety of different activities meant to raise awareness and deepen conversation about trauma-informed care practices. Our virtual Lunch and Learn webinar series touches on the workforce priority area of the Whole Health Louisiana plan and features presentations from industry professionals and subject matter experts. Our planned webinars are listed on the Eventbrite page that you all used to register for today's event. If you would like to register for our next Lunch and Learn webinar or are interested in seeing what the topics are. So before I introduce our speaker for today, I want to first mention our ASL interpreter today will be led by Lisa Gill. You should see her pinned to your screen to view the interpretation throughout. If you're having trouble, please do let us know and we can solve any tech issues. In addition, if you are attending for CEU credits, please remember to complete the post survey to receive your credits. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Kasie Mainiero. Kasie Mainiero is a dedicated educator with 25 years of experience, most of which has been spent serving the students and families of Cato Parish schools. Her foundation in education includes a bachelor's degree from Centenary College and a master's in counseling from Louisiana Tech. Additionally, she has over 30 hours of graduate work from LSUS and a doctorate in educational leadership at Louisiana Tech. Her commitment to fostering positive school environments began during her tenure as principal of University Elementary School, where she pioneered the We Care school system. This initiative successfully promoted a positive school climate and culture, resulting in reduction in suspensions and expulsions and an increase in the school performance score. Now, as the district's child well-being specialist, Mainiero is focused on ensuring the well-being of every child is the #1 priority. Her work involves collaborating with principals, counselors, administrators, and staff across all campuses to implement vital practices, including trauma-informed education, social emotional learning, de-escalation techniques, and restorative practices. In her work, she created We Care Schools, a partnership with Community Renewal International that supports intentional caring practices in schools. She is also committed to finding alternatives to suspensions, building meaningful relationships, and educating the whole child. She lives by the principle that without relationships, there is no learning, and champions intentional caring as the pathway to better schools and communities. Her mission is to ensure all children are in an environment where they feel safe and welcome and can flourish to their full potential. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it to Kasie to begin her presentation.
Hi there. Thanks so much. I appreciate that wonderful introduction. And I want to start by saying a deep appreciation to Miss Lissa Gill, our ASL interpreter, because I know that that is a serious talent and skill that she possesses that is so important. And I don't think it's enough recognition these days. It is the only class I ever took that I failed. So I'm just going to say, I think it's because I talk with my hands naturally and I couldn't get it. But I really, I wanted to say how much we appreciate that skill and that gift that you have. So thank you, Miss Gill. Um, okay, so I'm just going to get into it. I've been introduced. You know that I'm an educator. I know that my audience here today is not full of educators, so I will try to be careful to speak all the educational language and define some of those things, but also not speak to you solely from an educational standpoint. This work that we're doing in trauma across the state, trauma-informed education across this great state of Louisiana is so critically important to all areas, to healthcare, to schools, and to everyone in the communities that we serve. During my time working in schools, one observation dominated my experience, and that was that stress and negativity were contagious. When adults and students are operating in high stress environments and survival modes, it doesn't just feel bad, it creates a horrible, toxic environment that no one wants to come to or work at. And that was something that I thought, goodness, if that is the truth, then what is the opposite of that? If we don't work in a stressful, toxic environment full of negativity, if we work in an environment that is full of energy and life and positivity and caring, then what would that do? And what I found was that it did exactly the opposite. It made an environment that was a place where people wanted to come to work. When we made an intentional system-wide pledge to care and adopted caring language as a daily intentional practice, we saw something incredible happen. We really did. We saw stress levels drop. We saw behavioral referrals decrease. We saw both attendance and test scores rise. And I really wanted to understand deeply that process of that transformation. And that's part of my dissertation and what I was able to get my doctorate in is that educational leadership piece about climate and culture of schools and how to change the climate and culture of a school. And really, this can go across any type of work environment. It could be changing the climate and culture of a hospital, changing the climate and culture of a car factory or anything. So it doesn't just pertain to schools, but what we found was the hard science of the brain actually played a part in this. There is scientific evidence to why people want to come and work at places that are fun and inviting and have caring intentionally brought to the forefront. Um, so, who wants to show up at a place that feels miserable every day? Nobody wants to do that. And so we saw, people not coming to school, including the people who work there. And the kids weren't coming and people weren't coming. So I went out to prove that intentional care changes the neurochemistry of school itself. It changes everyone in the building. And so I want to talk a little bit to that science behind We Care, but I am going to share a presentation here with you. So I'm going to pull that up. And parts of this, I will skip over the educational parts that just pertain to starting your own We Care school. Not that you can. But I want to make sure I focus on some things that would interest the audience here today. So what is a We Care school? Just so you know what that is. It's a We Care school intentionally cultivates a culture of caring as a foundation for learning in the community. The concept was developed with me with Community Renewal International, which is a local nonprofit that we have here in town, but it's also international, obviously. And they they really promote that idea that we can change the world through caring together. And I know that sounds maybe trite or something, but it's so powerful when you really get into the ins and outs of it. Because if we are intentional in caring, and I know I keep saying that word intentional, but intentionality is the key to it, making sure that we're consciously aware of our intentionality. For instance, like today is World Kindness Day. I don't know if you knew that, but November 13th every single year is World Kindness Day. And it's a day that we can be very intentional about being kind to others. Well, in a We Care school, every single day is World Kindness Day. And we really focus on making sure that that feeling is constantly and intentionally monitored and programmed into our world. Some key components are recognizing that prioritizing relationships over everything else is so important. Creating a unique caring culture, making sure that it is all written down exactly what we're going to do and we're following a plan, and implementing intentional practices. I've said already. Community focus. We've really worked to get our kids at school and our adults in the school building to see the bigger picture of how we affect the community around us and how our school is a hub of the community and a central part of that community, and then how that community in itself can make the world a better place. If we get kids at the very youngest and start conditioning them to care, and we work on the adults definitely too. The adults are really the harder person to work on because they're already set in their ways. And so if we get them in the We Care way, as we call it, they start doing the things that really can change how our kids grow up and become better citizens of this world. And so, one of the biggest things is to get them as young as we can, following this model and understanding that the bigger picture is what's important and that they are part of that. Even at an early age, they can make a difference. And so, giving them that purpose is really key and essential to our work. So obviously, y'all know that the world has changed, correct? Everyone knows that the world has changed. We are we have students that do not have interpersonal skills. They're not understanding how they connect to the world. They feel like, in that little screen that they have on their phone or their iPad or whatever, that's their world a lot of times, and it's not. You don't, see them looking right at you in the eyes or coming to you with a personal feeling or that kind of thing because they haven't been brought up with that personal touch. And so we are really working on helping our kids form those relationship skills, see how important the interpersonal skills are, and use those daily. And so that's part of it. One of the other things that we see is a disconnect between the family. We have lost somewhat of the family unit that used to be so prevalent in America. It used to be just so prevalent where you had a mom and a dad and a child in a family, and that's not what the family structure looks like anymore. And we see so oftentimes that our children don't have someone in their life who is asking them how was their day at school, or don't have someone in their life who is really taking care of them. We have a lot of poverty. We have a lot of situations with drug addiction or abuse and all kinds of things that are going on. And I'm not going to get into that because I think everyone here is ACEs trained. You know the statistics. You know what kind of place we live in, and we know that the problems that are surrounding our children who face poverty every day are real and are a huge struggle. So I guess I want to make sure that everybody knows that we are part of the village that is going to help raise these children. And if we aren't part of that village, they're going to go down another path that is probably not a great path. We did some research here, just little research in our world here in Shreveport, Louisiana, in Caddo Parish. Our juvenile justice system that is also a huge supporter of my work and has helped me in this with the leadership of David Matlock when he was a judge here in town, looked at some of the kids that came through the juvenile justice system, and they asked them some questions, and they asked them, hey, tell us about your family structure. Tell us if you have a mom or a dad at home, or who you live with, or who is your person that you go to if you have a problem, or who is the person who asks you how you're doing. And what we found was that those children who came to the detention center, that means that they came there because they had a misdemeanor or had, broken the law in some way. Every one of them said they didn't have anyone. They didn't have a person, a pro-social adult in their life, someone who was mentoring them or someone who was making sure they were cared about, or that cared about the fact that they went to school or that they did well on a test. And y'all, if you think about that and you think about motivation in children, um, I don't know what the motivation would be if there's no one asking me about my day, or if there's no one asking me if I did well on my test. Why would I care about my test? If there's no one to ask me how I did in my basketball game, then why would I even care about that? If people don't feel connected to other people, there's a problem. And there's a reason why we called it the village a long time ago. It's always been the village. The village is it's important, and we know it's important to care together. If we think about our ancient ways and our survival mode that we go into, of course, we revert to selfishness and that kind of thing. But we know that the people a long time ago survived because they came together and worked together and realized that together we are better. So we know that it takes a village to raise a child, but there's another part to that saying, and that is the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. So when we think about that and we think about where our kids are these days and the things that they're doing, the behaviors that we see, we know that there's a why behind that behavior. And I know that probably everybody on this webinar knows that story about the why behind the behavior. You don't ever see a behavior without there being a why behind it. And when we get to those root causes and we get to those whys and we actually ask the question, why do you feel this way? Why are you upset? Why are you screaming out loud? Or why are you pounding your fist on the table? Like, what's going on with you? And we actually show them that we care about what's happening with them, then we can get somewhere. But we have to build relationships with the kids and we have to build trust. And this is with adults too. I'm not even saying at all that it's not about the adults. It's about the adults too. So many of our adults have broken systems within themselves. They're very broken. They're very hurt. They have a lot of trauma that they haven't dealt with, and that is causing them to act in a certain way or have behavioral issues themselves. And so we have to work and focus on both things. But treating people how we treat others is the key, how we want to be treated. That's the key. And all of these things are crime prevention too. So when we work to get to the root of the problems, we work to build relationships with children, when we can get children to see that there are adults in your life who really do care whether you succeed or not, and they feel that and they will respond to that and they will act better, and you will have better classroom management or better experiences in the classroom or out of the classroom. And so when we have an intentional emphasis on raising better citizens by teaching them how to care for ourselves and themselves, each other, and the world, that's when we change the world. And that's a community renewal principle that I would strongly believe in. So it's something to keep in mind. And one of the other things that I say all the time is that the road from school to prison is paved with unmet needs. And so when we think about what our kids need, if they don't have what they need over and over again, if they're continuing to be hurt by the system over and over again, that's when they're going to choose the wrong path. That's when they're going to go down the road that's the wrong road. And so to keep them on the right road, our system has to be set up to care about them as individuals, as humans. And oftentimes we're seeing in our schools that that's being overlooked. And it's all, just going straight to testing or going straight to the content of the lesson or whatever, and we're missing the mark. Another common educational phrase that we say is Maslow's before Bloom's. And if you know anything about educational lingo, we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of learning. And you have to have the bottom rungs of the ladder met before you can get to the higher order thinking skills that are on Bloom's taxonomy. And so Maslow talks about you have to have security. You have to have food. You have to have water. You have to have shelter. You have to know that you're cared for. And about the third rung of that is love and caring and kindness and patience. And if kids do not have that trust, that felt safety, they're not going to make it to the higher order thinking skills up there in the Bloom's taxonomy. So it's kind of funny to me that we focus on and we emphasize constantly the content of the material that we're teaching, but we don't emphasize that we've got to get them to the place where they can even hear it. And to get them there, we have to go through all of those places on Maslow's. So anyway, so the science behind we care schools, I think, would be fascinating to you guys because you're in this world of healthcare. There's a neurochemistry to this, to the connection part. Caring relationships don't just feel good; they create felt safety, which is the brain's assurance that the environment is secure and that the connection is stable. These kids, a lot of times, are coming to us out of chaos, and I will say the adults are too. And so how do we make sure that we're making that that shift to stability for them, at least during the day when they're at the school building? Um, that connection shifts the brain out of survival mode and into a state of optimal readiness for growth. You know as well as I do, we can't learn anything, we can't do anything when we're in a state of panic. I was in a state of panic before I started this Zoom because I couldn't get the link to work. And here I am speaking, and I was in a state of panic, just a tiny bit of panic. I didn't get too panicked, but it gets you all riled up, and you start having that feeling of, oh no, this isn't going to work. And then you can't think of the next thing to do. You can't think of how to problem solve because you're in a state of panic. My daughter, who I say she's just brilliant. She's a pre-med student at Tulane, and I'm so proud of her. But the other day she calls me, and she was trying to get into the parking garage where she works at the hospital as an ER tech, and she's not able to get in the parking garage. She can't think because it's 4 minutes until she's going to be late to work. And there's cones that they put up because there was some kind of construction. And she's just in this panic state. And I said, take a deep breath, calm down, and just think about what you need to do. And we just took some breaths together. We took some deep breaths together. And she realized, oh, I can go through this other entrance with my key card and just put it there. I have a key card and it will get me in. But she could not think of that key card when she was in that moment of panic. And I know that's kind of a silly example, but it's what we really deal with in reality. Well, if your reality is a constant state of stress and you are constantly in survival mode, you definitely cannot think about the math lesson. You're not going to be able to process what that teacher is saying about something that is irrelevant to you if you're in survival mode. So getting our kids to be in a place, in a state of stability where they can focus and learn and think is a big part of what we're trying to teach our educators to do. And I have a great relationship with our Volunteers for Youth Justice, which is here in town. And I don't know if everybody has a Volunteers for Youth Justice. I don't think that everybody does, but they are an organization and a group that that works alongside the Justice Department, and they work with all kinds of outside agencies for our schools to help give those wraparound services that our kids need. And through that, we've created something that is very special. That's a school resource team through a grant that we got. They can go onto school campuses and actually take a kid for a walk or sit down with a family and say, what do you need? What are the resources you need? They're there on our campuses working daily side by side with our educators. And we found that this is really making a huge difference because a lot of times it's just that there's not enough hands on deck. There's not enough people in the school building to go take that child for a deep breathing session or a calming session or a walk around. And we really need that on campuses. If there's anyone that says our counselors can do that at schools, they haven't been to schools. We have a serious discrepancy in counselor to student ratio. The school where I worked had a 500 to 1 student to counselor ratio, and most schools have that or more. So our counselors and who are swamped in paperwork and all kinds of things are oftentimes not able to counsel students or even work with students to calm them down and do the preventative work that needs to happen so that they can learn. So just, keeping that in mind, that trying to think outside the box of other people that might could help in those situations is part of what we do. And so we We like to get volunteers to help with that. We get mentors to help with that. We get churches to help. Anyone we can that can come in and just be a person for the kid to listen to, or their mentor, or their pro-social adult who's asking about their test. Like, how did you do on your test today? Sometimes that's all they need, or somebody who'll bring them a birthday cupcake or something. But oftentimes that is what our kids will say made all the difference. And anyway, okay, I got away from the science. So where did I leave off? Oxytocin, the bonding hormone. So we know that's the love hormone. That's the key neurochemical released during positive social interactions, like a comforting word from a teacher or a welcoming smile. We don't have near enough of this in schools. And so in our We Care schools, we make an intentional effort to have that extra. And so we have these lovely, fun little things called We Care cards. They're Caught You Caring cards. And we go out and we intentionally try to catch people in caring acts. The teachers catch other teachers, the teachers catch students, the students catch students. And it's very important for two reasons: the person who's giving the card and the person who's getting the card, and the person who's observing the interaction between the people getting and giving the cards. All are affected and all produce oxytocin, which is that awesome chemical that makes us feel better, that makes us feel calm, and that we're in a safe place. The coolest thing I ever saw was I went to a grocery store where I live, and on the cash register there was one of these cards that is, they only happen at our schools. We just do it in our schools. But the register cashier said, I got this card from one of the students that came by and said I was her favorite cashier because I always smiled and gave her a smile, and it meant so much to this lady that she kept the card and put it on her cash register. And so, y'all, when we think about the impact of that in our community, making people feel better, just in our daily, everyday experiences, is huge. And it could be the difference in that person going home and being mean to her children, or being frustrated with something else, or making some kind of blast on Facebook about something she's mad at. We can change this narrative that we see all this negativity constantly, but who's doing something to counteract it? Who's doing something to go against it? Well, what do we need to do to go against it? We need to put intentional, caring, positive practices in place to counteract all that is going on in the world. And so, so it can cross into the regular community, is what my point was with the caring cards. There's so much more to the program. I'm not going to tell you in detail every single little piece of the program, but that part is kind of the first thing we get our schools doing, is that caring card game and activity, because it does release that bonding hormone, and gives you that feeling of felt safety and that calm, stress relieving. It also helps support emotional regulations. And then if you think about cortisol and the stress response, really calming our limbic system is really important. Kids that are under that constant stress, their limbic system is on fire all the time. It's like their alarms are going off constantly. And anybody who's in that state all the time is going to be very reactionary. They're going to be very impulsive. They're going to go off on someone at a moment's notice. So by keeping stress responses low and motivation high, children's brains can dedicate full energy to their academic pursuits and the formation of those neural pathways necessary for that deep learning and that emotional well-being that's fostered by genuine care. And then that's the prerequisite for everything. I know we talk a lot about these days, teachers are they're all the things. They have to be a psychologist, they have to be a social worker, they have to be a counselor, they have to be all these things. And I don't think that. I think that's putting too much pressure on teachers. All I say is that they have to care. That's it. It's just that you have to care. Kids don't care what you know until they know you care. And that's kind of our premise for everything. I think I've pretty much gone over what the difference is between a We Care school and a non-We Care school. It's not that it's a bad thing not to be a We Care school. It's just they don't know what being a We Care school is like and what it can do for them. The certain things that have to happen in a We Care school is that a leadership model is a very important thing. If you don't have a leader who is dedicated to this and who has pledged and made a pledge and a promise to caring intentionality and caring and to caring together, it's not going to work in that organization. And it could be any organization. It could be the head of whatever business or agency. It does not have to be a principal of a school. But I'm telling you, if the principal or the leader of that agency makes that promise and really promises that with her staff or his staff to care together to make the world a better place, there's nothing that can't happen. It is a recipe for changing the world in a positive way. And so that is something that I talk about a lot. Here's our vision, our mission, and our goals. I think I've pretty much covered most of these things, just that vision is to cultivate the caring students through an intentional culture of empathy and respect, to build stronger communities to change the world. And I think that's the key to it is making sure that everyone understands the bigger picture. There's such a bigger picture here. And most times we miss the mark by not constantly reminding people of their importance, of their worth, of their value. If we tell people how valued they are, how important they are constantly, and I learned this from Mac McCarter, who's the creator of Community Renewal International, who constantly tells me how important I am, which makes me feel better, which makes me have the ability to do things like this, because I don't think that I would without people who I know care about me and lift me up and make me feel like I'm capable. That's so important. And I think if we did that so much more with each other, we would see so many more positives in this world, in society. So it's really important. So where I work is Caddo Parish Schools. And I do want to say a couple of things about our district. Our district has done an amazing thing by allowing me the autonomy to run with this, for better lack of better terms. I was a principal here, and they saw the changes I made to the school and very positive things that had happened. And so they let me shift into a role in the district where I could help bring this climate and culture change to many other schools and try to see if that difference made a difference, if that, adding that to schools made a difference. And what I'm here to bring to you today is that it did. We had, in the last 2 years, we started shifting to that trauma-informed approach, working to change the mindset. That's the first thing that has to happen. We have to change the mindset of our teachers, employees. We had to have huge meetings with everybody that we could get, where we really worked on that mindset shift. Everybody's not in the same place about these things. Everybody doesn't necessarily agree that we should change how, the punitive system to a more restorative practices system and those kinds of things. And that, trauma is real and that we need to address it so that we can move forward. But the great things are we've increased our school performance score. So this is the big test scores. We've increased our school performance score as a district to a B system. We are a huge system with all kinds of issues with poverty and all just a lot of issues. And we're able to get that B status, which is huge. And we have not done in many, many years. Relationship building is one of the district's top priorities this year. So I'm very excited about that. We've added an emphasis and an entire team dedicated to climate and culture and deterring truancy and attendance issues. So we've added some people to this plan, trying to get kids back to school. I truly believe that the number one reason children don't come to school is because school's not fun. It's not fun. And so do we make it welcoming? Do we make it inviting? Do we make it a place where people would want to come? And if we're not answering those questions with a yes, then I don't know why they would come. And if we have parents who are not like they used to, your mom would say, you're going to school, whether or not you want to. That's not the way it is anymore. And so we're fighting an uphill battle when we don't make the place an inviting place, a warm and welcoming place, an inclusive place for all, then we may not get them to come. And right now, the reality is that they don't have to come. They can find other places to go and other things to do. And we don't want that to be our world. And so whatever we can do to get them back to school, and I think making the school an inviting place is number one. So we're working on that. And we have a collaboration, like I told you about the collaboration with the VYJ, which is the Volunteers for Youth Justice. We have a collaboration with Community Renewal International. We have a collaboration with DCSF. We have collaboration with other agencies like our Sheriff's Department, our Police Department. We come together once a month to talk in a forum type setting where we talk about all our problems we're having and we try to problem solve around the issues that are out there in our city and in our community to see how we can all work together. Because a lot of times these agencies and these systems have been working against one another. And so the coolest thing, though, is that we have the harbor, this building that I'm sitting in right now, which is a building full of wraparound agencies supporting our schools and supporting our community in getting them the things they need, such as counseling, foster care help, all kinds of services. We have Project Celebration, which has something to do with domestic violence support. We just have a lot of great agencies, the food bank and uniform closet. We have all kinds of things where people can come to one building and get what they need, or at least get connected to what they need in other services. So we really have a lot going on in Caddo Parish to support this need and to move towards a more trauma-informed community as a whole. So I think that we're definitely moving in the right direction. Here's some data. I know people love data, so I wanted to show just a bit about our data. We do have a great data story in our We Care schools where we've increased attendance, decreased behavioral infractions, decreased out-of-school suspensions, reduced chronic absenteeism, increased teacher retention and suspension, retention and satisfaction, and increased academic results. One of the things that I know that was different about my school is that I had teachers there that wanted to stay there. They would not leave. And I had a line out the door of teachers lining up to come teach there. And that is saying something these days in the environment that we're in now. It's hard to find teachers. And so when you create an environment where they want to work, where they're supported and they feel cared about and they feel like they're valued, you can get good teachers. And so anyway, that's one thing. So let's see, after becoming a We Care school, mastery and above mastery rates, and this is on our school performance score on our LEAP test, the state testing for Louisiana, at a school like Ridgewood, for instance, they went from 49.6 to 84.62%. That is huge increase in mastery and above. Mastery is our level where we want to get kids in education. And so to get that huge of a jump is a big deal. At Broadmoor STEM Academy, when they transferred into being a We Care school, their school performance score, the SPS, went from 46.8 to 52.6. Those are huge increases. Those are not normal increases. Those are big. It's a big deal. So there you see also universities incremental increase just year after year going up. Ridgewood, that gigantic jump in academic performance. And then we see this, which is another favorite of mine, the decrease in truancy. And you want on this chart, you want to go down. Decrease is good. And so we decreased truancy, and that is your kids who are not coming to school. University Elementary decreased violent and aggressive and disruptive behaviors that led to out of school suspensions. And we talked about the why behind the behavior. When we can find that why, we can change those responses and we can say, oh, maybe this was a reason why they acted that way. Let's do something about it instead of suspending them out of school and sending them home to a place that no one is there and they're not talking about what's going on sometimes. And then chronic absenteeism decreased by 17% at North Caddo Elementary and at Riverside Elementary. So here's these two examples of where truancy just plummeted and chronic absenteeism dropped, which is just after putting that emphasis on, what do we want to do to make school a place that people want to come? That is really the first thing that they did. And they just made their environment more welcoming, more friendly, and worked on that at first. And they had huge decreases in absenteeism, which is one of the big pushes right now for the state of Louisiana. They're trying to get people back in school. They're trying to get people to want to come to school. And so a place like a We Care school is a place where people want to be. They want to come to school. Okay, that's what we see in the data. Here's our We Care schools for 2025-26. We have about 25, I think. We even have one in Cameroon, Africa, which is kind of cool. And we've got some in DeSoto Parish. We have some in Tennessee. We have one in yeah, those are the other two places outside of, I'm right. Everything else is in Caddo Parish. But you know, all of our We Care schools are in different places as far as like where they are on the We Care continuum. Some of them are starting off brand new. Some of them have been in it for a while and have it going on, and they know exactly what they're doing. We're all in different places. Now, I'm not going to seriously get into this. I'm probably going to stop right here or close to here, because this is like what a We Care school in year one needs to learn and do to be a We Care school. So there's very specific criteria and components to that. And that would take an educational training plan to go over that with them. And so I don't want to get, you know, too deep into the weeds with you guys, but just know that there is a plan and there is a way to follow the We Care way. And these are some of the things that you have to have. We have morning meetings that we do where we meet with kids every morning. The teachers meet with kids every morning and talk about things that matter to them, and they listen to them, and they talk about social and emotional things that are going on in their lives, and help them through processing through whatever trauma they're dealing with. And sometimes they're just talking about how to focus. Hey, let's have a lesson on focus. It's starting off the day in the right way. Greetings, announcements, and goodbyes goes right there to that too. It's like if you walk into a school and no one says good morning to you, what makes you want to keep walking in? What makes you want to keep getting? What makes you want to get to class? Like, what is it? So making sure that there's intentionality behind the greetings, having music in the mornings, having people outside welcoming people in, you know, having fun activities, all that kind of stuff, just getting people excited about coming to school. And then also having exciting announcements and announcements about caring and announcements about these things. And then also making sure we say goodbye, and we say goodbye with intentionality. We can't wait to see you come back tomorrow. All of those things are very important, even though they're just little, they seem little. They're very important to be very intentional about. And there's so many things like that, but that's just one example. We have the 8 cultures, which is what I wrote my dissertation on, making sure that we meet each of the cultures. We have a culture of welcome, and we talk about what that means to be a culture of welcome. We talk about a culture of relationships and relationship building and how to do that. And there's 8 different 1-hour training sessions on that. We talk about the 10 community challenges. If we're not part of the bigger world, what is our purpose in life? What are we doing for the rest of the world? What are we doing for the community? Are we out there planting trees? Are we picking up trash? Are we doing something to help others? And then we have some tours and some professional development that we do. We really work with them on planning, on that long range planning, how to plan out everything they need to do to have a We Care school. But one of the main things that I don't think I said very clearly is helping them understand what it means to have the We Care way. The We Care way is what we say every day. And we help hold each other in check on that, the accountability piece of having intentional caring. And we talked about the promise a little bit, about having the promise of We Care, saying that we promise to work together to be to care together. But the back end of that is when we don't, or when we fail, because we're going to fail every day. We're going to fail, and we're going to do something that is sarcastic or mean or snipey or snarky, whatever word. We're going to do something that we're going to fail. And so we have to say to ourselves, is that the We Care way? And we have to say to our neighbor, we made a promise. Is that the We Care way? And we have to hold each other accountable, and we have to hold ourselves accountable. And to have that accountability and to say that over and over again is really important. And we have to call people on it, which is really hard. And so it's not easy being a We Care school. It can be very, very difficult, very challenging. But once you get into it and you get a rhythm of it and you get used to it, it comes pretty naturally after a while. So that's just one of the important things. And you can start that right now in your business or anywhere. Say, hey, is that the We Care way? We all need to be part of the We Care way. So anyway, this is more about the training plans and different things that are offered to get started on that. But this is like the final part. There's hope for our future. It starts right here. Imagine a better world, less fighting, less death, more compassion, more empathy, more caring. And it can all begin in our schools. So you can be part of that. Here's some We Care moments, some pictures I'd really like to see. Bus drivers, we have bus driver training for trauma-informed bus drivers. Very important. And that's pretty much it. So here's my information. Here's my contact information. I'm willing to help anyone start this process, or even if you just want to sit and talk about it with me on a Zoom, we could have a great old time chatting about how to make the world a better place. So I hope that I inspired you today on World Kindness Day to go out and do something intentional about caring and kindness, because you can change the world.
Thank you so much for the great presentation, Dr. Mainiero. The first, I guess, question that we have right now is someone in the chat asked you to repeat the
Repeat 'em.
services that you were mentioning at the beginning of the presentation.
Yeah, there's a lot of connections that we make with the community services. Community resources are a huge part of being a We Care school. We rely on everyone to come together and be a part of the caring together. So some of them are the Volunteers for Youth Justice, which we have here. I don't know if they have that everywhere, but it's a partnership with basically our justice system in tandem with them. And then our Community Renewal International is in a lot of different places, and so you can look them up. The VOA, Volunteers of America, we work with them. We work with all kinds of different counseling agencies. We work with all kinds of different religious agencies. They all are part of what we do. We work with the Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, the DCSF, Division of Family Services, and foster care services. All those people, we all come together to talk about how we can help. And I would say LSU Health Center. I've worked with them a lot too. Yeah.
The next question that we have in the chat box is Cynthia asks, can you say who the leaders are within the essentials?
Who the leaders are? Okay, hold on. Let me see. The leaders are within the schools. Is that what she's asking?
She asked, Cynthia, if you're still on, can you clarify what you mean by within the essentials? Well, while we're waiting for her to maybe clarify her question, we have another one that asked, what has been the largest source of friction to implementing We Care principles in schools? Have there been communities, parents, or admin who have pushed back on this change?
Not the parents. The parents love it. The parents definitely know. The parents loved it. Yes, other people for sure. When I was the principal of the We Care school, I got, why do you want to make your school like Disney World? That's not right. That's not what you should be doing. You shouldn't be having all that fun at school, which I thought was the most hilarious comments, because why wouldn't you want to go to school at Disney World every day? I don't know why anybody would not want to do that. But I think that there is a misunderstanding that we have to be mean and serious at school. We have to be hard on kids. We have to be harsh with them. We have to be I don't know, like so strict or so mean, and you can get a lot of things done. You can get way more things done. My grandmother used to say you can get more. What's the deal with the honey and the flies? You can get more flies with honey than with salt, or something like that. Like if you are nice and kind, you can actually get more done. But people have a tendency to feel like schools just have to be this harsh place that we have to stay so rigid and focused and whatever, and that somehow academics were suffering because of that. And that is absolutely not the case. In fact, you saw in my school performance scores that they kept increasing. And so it just tends to be something that people just push against, that we can't be nice and kind and still accomplish the things we're accomplishing. And I would say that there's a thing that people talk about, like, don't mistake my kindness for weakness. It's not weak to be kind. It's not weak to care about a kid. It's not weak to show them that you care or that you made a mistake, or that it actually builds resilience and builds sympathy and empathy and understanding and all these wonderful skills that you need to be a successful adult. And when we don't teach them those skills, we have adults who are not successful. But yes, I have gone against, I mean, there's been a lot of friction. Law enforcement, we have a lot of, we have a lot of interesting conversations and we have to talk through those things where I disagree with some of the ways they do some things and they disagree with some of the ways I do some things, and we have to kind of work through those and talk about it. And that's with many other people too. It's not what everybody's norm or just go to is necessarily, and that's why the word intentionality has to be behind it so much, because you don't just do it naturally. Yeah.
Cynthia clarified in the chat here, is it self-appointed leaders or administrator roles?
Um, okay, so I mean, it's everybody in the leadership of a school that has to be kind of on board. So it starts with the principal, of course. You have to be, the person at the top has to believe in it, and then they make sure that everybody on their team is part of that, and then it keeps going from there. I think that's.
Okay, we have another question that asks, when a child moves out from a We Care school, do you still keep in touch with them or the family to continue the resources?
So, okay, so the resources part, yes, because they, if they're in any school in our district, they have the access to the harbor, which is our wraparound one-stop shop for resources. But unfortunately, if they move out of We Care school, they will not have the same climate and culture necessarily at their school. Now, I will say this: there are plenty of schools out there that have a great climate and culture and have not become a We Care school, but they already have that, so that's great. But there are some schools that don't have that same philosophy that they could move to, and so they wouldn't have that part. But as far as the resources, yes, they should have the same access to resources.
Okay, and the next question we have is from Angela, and she asked, what would you say the timing is where a school or organization implementing the program begin to see changes in the culture?
Yeah, it's a slow roll. It's not instantaneous. I always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. And oftentimes it's about the process of getting there. It's not really a, see the end in sight kind of thing. It's a daily struggle and a daily going uphill and then going sliding downhill and going back uphill. It's definitely a work in progress everywhere that tries to do it. And so I can't really say like a specific amount of time because I have some schools that it was an instant change, and some schools where it's a slower process. And I think that has to do with leadership. When you have a leader that's just, it's really easy for them because it's part of who they are anyway. That makes the process move a little faster. But when you have a leader who it goes against what they're normally like, or what their normal philosophy of leadership or education, it's a lot harder for them.
We have a question from Christina. How does a We Care school handle bullying?
So there would be restorative practices that would be put in place. Of course, with any situation like that, you would try to get to the why behind the behavior, and have that conversation with both sides of what's going on, and really talk to that family about putting some strategies in place to work towards. Usually with bullying, there's something wrong internally with the child. There's something going on where they have a lack of self-esteem. So what is the need? You have to find the need. Okay, well, we seek the need by asking the question, and we ask them, what's going on with you? Why do you feel like you need to put somebody else down? That's not the We Care way. And so then we talk about what it means to be a We Care student, what it means to be someone who cares for others before themselves, or at least as much as themselves. And so that's a long conversation, and there's a lot of work to be done there. And they may have some service that they have to do with a mentor, with someone who's walking side by side with them, talking to them about how to treat others and modeling for them how to treat others. But it is something that would be taken very seriously on both ends of that, because the kid that has been bullied or is being bullied also has some things that they need to talk about, how it made them feel, and to work that out. So they would need a lot of support also. And a lot of times kids who are being bullied don't come out as being bullied until they've been bullied for a long time. And so they could have some serious damage and some serious trauma related to that they need to work through. And so work with them too. So there's a lot that would happen.
Do you use a database systems for assessments and communication between the teams and resources? Asked Janice.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, let's see, where is that question? Say it again.
It's in the Q&A box. It says, do you use a database system for assessments and communication between the teams and resources?
Yeah, I just use Google Forms. Yeah, I use Google Forms mostly. But we have a management system that our whole district uses. And so as say for our district schools, we use that data management system, but I use Google Forms to survey a lot, and to ask questions a lot, like that kind of thing.
Okay, and then I think this is our final question that we have time for. Can you tell us more about the trauma-informed care training bus drivers go through? What does that look like for them, and how has their training impacted We Care schools?
That's one of my favorite trainings, actually. We have to train everyone. It can't be just that can't be that they go to a We Care school, but then they get on a bus to someone who's being hateful to them. Like that is gonna conflict. And not that bus drivers were hateful. I don't want to misinterpret anything, but what we found was that a lot of our bus drivers needed to understand self-care and understand that they were important and understand that they needed to be valued. And we spent a lot of time working on them and their self-esteem, and them understanding the importance of their role. And I think that changed them in and how they interacted with children, because we had a lot of bus drivers who were very punitive and just stayed kind of frustrated at their children. But when they realized their own importance and their own worth, and how when that kid gets on my bus and I say hi to him and I say, "How are you doing today, Jordan?" They know that has an impact. And I think before, when the bus drivers didn't feel valued, they didn't feel like they were making an impact, they didn't feel like their job was important, or valued by others, they wouldn't even bother to say hi to that child. They're just like, "Get back in the back of the go." And so it changed the dynamics between the children and the bus drivers, and the bus drivers saw it really quickly that the behavior on their bus decreased, and that people were different, the kids were different, and they were different, and they were happier to be there. We did a lot of rewarding of the bus drivers in that first year, giving them treats and candy and things and saying, "You're so amazing, you're so important, you're so," like, because they really don't get that. They just weren't getting that. And so most of this is about how we're treating adults, and then those adults will then trickle down and treat children better. But the adults haven't been treated the right way in a long time in some cases. And bus drivers were ones that we found that really had not been told their worth or value, or had not heard it if they had been told. And so we really had to make an intentional effort to show them their importance. And that was the coolest thing. I don't know. It's just like it's been the coolest transformation to see the bus drivers just happy and serving and being thrilled with what they do and giving it back to the community and to the kids. So we
Thank
do
you
that
for
every
that.
year. We do that training
Mhm.
every year now.
Thank you for that answer, Dr. Mainiero. That sounds honestly really amazing, just to ensure that everyone has a role when it comes to children's health and well-being, and making sure everyone feels important. So thank you so much for your insight and for your amazing presentation. We're at time today. And I just want to point to the chat real quick. We dropped some information on Dr. Maineiro's email and the Community Renewal website. If anyone is interested in checking that out and has any more questions for Dr. Mainiero, I want to remind everyone of the post survey if you're getting CEUs. And yeah, that's it. And check us out for next month's Lunch and Learn. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Thank you so much. Thank you too, Lisa. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Liz.